its work, but also, for example, the human right to water, the issues of the rights of nature, and so on. So it's always, if you go there to La Paz and you go to the Solôn Foundation, you will find a very interesting mixture between art and social conscious.
Does the Solôn Foundation give scholarships to students from Fairleigh Dickinson to come to visit Bolivia?
No, we don't do that. What we do is
a big mistake.
You think so?
Next question will come from the gentleman on the other side of the aisle, right here.
I have a question concerning the Council of Indigenous People, which I thought was a genius idea, but I was wondering how it would actually work more practically and within the actual aspects of the Earth and its representation.
Excuse me, the question on the Council?
The Council of Indigenous People.
Indigenous Peoples Council.
I don't know exactly what do you refer with Indigenous Peoples Council.
I was actually reading an article about a meeting of indigenous people in Bolivia, from Aborigines and people from Africa, as far as representing the Earth as pretty much as a entity within itself.
Oh, well, that is a proposal that we have brought here to the UN, but indigenous people, and we all, because I agree with you, we all are indigenous. We all have been at some time indigenous people. The only difference, I would say, is that some remember that and some have already forgotten that. One thing that very indigenous people have, no matter if they live in Bolivia or they live in Asia or Africa or here in North America, is the respect for Mother Earth, the respect for nature. Indigenous people think that nature cannot be treated as a thing, as an object. Nature is our home. And the problem of societies now is that they treat nature as a commodity in many cases. They treat it as a source of natural resources. And we must change that relation with nature. That is why we think, and we as Bolivia has made a proposal, that in this century we not only have to recognize that humans have rights, but also nature has rights. We are part of one system, the Earth system. Humans are not the owners of the system. If we want to maintain the system, we have to maintain the balance inside the system. The problem is that only one part of the system has rights. The rest is treated as an object. We have to respect the integrity of all the parts of the system, the integrity of the cycles of water, for example, forests, biodiversity, and so on. We have to change the way we relate with nature. And that is why we have made a proposal in relation to the rights of nature, something that has been recognized, for example, in the Constitution of Ecuador. And now it's being discussed in not only in civil society, but also it began to be discussed at the level of governments.
If I could just add, if you are interested in indigenous peoples, that in the United Nations we have a department dealing with indigenous peoples. It's called the Forum of Indigenous Peoples. It is headed by a true princess from an indigenous tribe in Bangladesh, Chandrika Roy. And they're doing enormous work, and they're in fact preparing a global forum which is going to take place within a month, in which you have participation from the Red Indians wearing their feathers and the Maoris from New Zealand coming and doing their dances, and the Eskimos. So it's a huge forum in which due attention is given to people who are, as the ambassador said, misclassified as indigenous peoples, but who are generally mistreated in almost all countries for being indigenous.
The next question will come from the gentleman in the first row.
Good evening. My name is Lia from Libya. Thank you, Ambassador, for coming today. Thank you for all the valuable information that you have given us. But my questions or my intervention will be regarding the policy of Bolivia. You have mentioned something that in Bolivia that you almost import everything from outside. However, you have a lot of natural resources. And you had mentioned also about the revolutions happening in Egypt, that you had it in advance. So with all this previous experience, could you tell us what are the lessons learned from those, so you could, see the way forward for Bolivia? And regarding the integration, with the South America, you have just referred to the European Union as an example for that, but you could also take the example of African Union, since they are also developing countries and almost same situation, same circumstances. So don't you see that it's also important to have integration with the neighbor countries? To have stronger positions, at least at the UN, and you know that African Union are doing well in this case. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, well, what was one of the lessons in the case of Bolivia was what happened in Bolivia before was that our main natural resource that was being exploited was gas. We exported gas, mainly gas. More than 60 to 70% of our exports were gas. But 82% of the revenues of the gas exports went to the corporations that were big transnational companies from outside Bolivia. And for the state remain 18%. So what we did was we said, okay, we're going to renegotiate that. We call it the nationalization process. And we said we want to do it in another way. You will have 20%, we will have 80%. At the beginning they say, oh, that's not possible. We said, why? With 20%, you recover your investment and you have utilities. The gas is ours, so we should have the big share. They said that they were going to leave, but at the end, no company left Bolivia, because even with a revenue of around 20%, with a share of 20%, they have profits. So the change has begun, because you need money in order to industrialize the country. You need money. So where are we going to get the money? From those natural resources. Now we have enough money in order to begin a process of development of new industries, in order that we do not only export raw material outside Bolivia. So if you want to change the future, I would say the people have to control, the government has to control, and the main resources, the nation has to control its main resources, and they have to be distributed for the people, because that is the other side of the story. You can control that, but that can go only to a very small part of the population, or to a bureaucracy.